Welcome to Meet the GIMP. My name is Rolf Steinort and I am recording this in Bremen, Northern Germany. In this tutorial, I will explain you the drawing tools in detail. The first drawing tool is pencil, and it works with very hard edges. Here I have drawn a straight line, and if I zoom into the image, you can see each pixel is either black or white. When I select the paintbrush for drawing, I get a line which has soft edges, and when I switch back to zoom, you can see a hard line with visible edges when drawn with pencil, and when I draw with paintbrush, I get a soft line. Back to the pencil here. You see the pencil is very sharp in the edges and paintbrush is smooth, but you can't see here the edges. This is called trick of the eye. When I enlarge it, you see it here. It's anti-aliased. This is the main difference between the pencil and the paintbrush. Otherwise, they are nearly equal, and their options too. Now let's start with the paintbrush. Click on the paintbrush tool in the toolbox and you get the options for that. The modes are just the same as in the layer modes. As you can see here, multiply or overlay and so on. Here is the opacity slider, and by using this you can control the visibility and the color of the line. I slide the value to say 25%, and now when I draw, I get a light gray line instead of black. And when I cross this line with a new line, you can see that the color gets stronger. But it only happens if I go over it with a new line. I zoom into this part and select a bigger brush, and now when I draw a line, it's gray, and I draw a second line and the intersection of these two lines is dark gray, and now I draw a third line over here and intersection gets more darker gray. But when I paint back with the same line, it doesn't get darker. So this works only from stroke to stroke, and you can easily paint an area with gray, and you don't have to watch carefully while filling this. Here you can see an option called incremental. When you select incremental, you get much stronger effect. Let's go to the options of the brushes, and here you can see the spacing of this brush is set to 20%. Brushes is basically a stamp which stamps the same pattern on and on. And when I zoom in here, you can see after 20% of the size of the brush, there is a next impression of this brush. Here, each brush overlays itself. When you deselect incremental option, you can see the each stamping of the brush, but there is no painting over, and I have to start a second line. And when I select incremental, I can paint over and over. Go back to 100%. I have covered opacity and incremental options. Let's go back with the opacity with 100%, and I can draw again perfect black. Incremental is meaningful only if you have an opacity lower than 100%. Scale slider controls the size of the pen here, and when I slide down to 1, you get a small size of the brush. When I scale the brush to say 0.05, I can draw a very fine line, and I can set the slider to say 2, and I have a broad line. Scale basically controls the diameter of the brush, and you can also control with the square brackets on the keyboard. With the help of open square bracket, I can reduce the size of brush, and with close square bracket, I can increase the size. You can see that the brush is nearly invisible. So, I can adjust the size of brush without leaving the area where I paint. If someone of the GIMP people are looking forward, I would love to have a button to get back the slider to 1. So, scale option is covered, and I will cover the brush in detail in next tutorial. Here is an option called pressure sensitivity, and I can use it while editing the image. So, let's have a look here at opacity. Now, when I draw without a lot of pressure, you get a line which is gray in color. And when I increase the pressure, I get a dark color. And when I decrease the pressure, I get a light colored line. This option is useful if you are painting a mask. This is quite useful. Next option is hardness. When I draw with not much pressure, there is a soft border, and when I increase the pressure, the paintbrush acts like a pen. When I select the pencil tool and draw, I get hard border, and this can make a hard border if really press on the tablet. I can change the size of the brush with pressure sensitivity. I can also change the color using pressure sensitivity. So I select another color from the background color. How this one here. So let's select this red color. And for the foreground color, let's select a nice green. And When I start painting here with the selected color, with low pressure, I get green, and when I am increasing the pressure, I get red, and if released, I get green or greenish stuff again, and in between, the color changes between green and red. The last option is using color from the gradients. To select the gradient, go to File, Dialogues, and Gradients. Here's the gradient, and now I just grab this window and pull it to here, and now I have a gradient here. In gradient, I have a big selection of patterns. Let's select this one, and now I go back here. Now when I'm painting, the paint goes through this pattern on the gradient. It's quite funny for some things like writing or working with gradients. It looks like made out of tube or so. These were the options of the gradient. These options are common for all the tools which uses brushes. That is pencil, the paintbrush, the eraser, the airbrush, which has some additional options. The ink has no brush, but it has lot of other options. The clone tool, the healing tool, the perspective clone tool, and even tools like blur, sharpen, or dodge and burn has the option of brushes. Now let's go back to pencil and paintbrush. Just clear this again. There are some tricks which you can use here. The first trick is about drawing a line. When I try to draw a straight line, it's a bit difficult. But when I first set one point with a click and press the shift key, I get a straight line. Here I have a straight line. The next trick is just set one point and press shift control, and now the rotation of my line is locked to 15 degree, and so I can draw easily straight lines with defined angles. So what a masterpiece here. There is something else that you can do with this shift key. For that, select the gradient tool. Draw a line with gradient selected, and you get lot of different colors. I select a small brush and deselect the gradient tool and select my standard colors. Now when I press the control key, I can select a color from the line I had drawn, and you can see the foreground color is changed to the blue tone. So I can pick a color somewhere out of the image which is quite nice. And if you want to paint in something in a picture and it has the color you need. Just click on it and you have the specific color on your palette. That is a nice trick. Basically, the eraser tool is the same tool as the pen or the brush because it's just the opposite of them. The eraser also paints, but it gives the background color. You can see it here. But for that, you should deselect the brush sensitivity and opacity. When I just switch the foreground color and the background color to black and white, and switch white as the foreground color and select the pen, I can get the same effect as the eraser. After changing the color, erasing gets black. You can change the foreground and background color by pressing the X key. I have covered the pencil, the paintbrush, and also the eraser in detail. For more info, go to meetthegimp.org. If you want to send a comment, please write to info@meetthegimp.org. This is Hemant Vaidande, dubbing for the Spoken Tutorial project.